as a business consultant and a life coach, but now more pastor, a speaker. That's how you describe yourself?
I had multiple businesses that I owned in the early 2000s, and life was going really well.
Yep.
We were active as a family in the church. We had a really good lifestyle, but then the global financial crisis came along. And for me, that's what I call my Saul to Paul moment.
Okay.
I literally got knocked off a donkey, landed on my head, and I couldn't see which way was up.
Yep.
Like Paul, I was blind, and that was an opportunity that God was using to redirect me, and I had to take time out. I had to rethink everything that was important to me.
Yep.
And at the end of it, I heard God say, "Look, I'm repurposing you. No longer do I want you serving your needs. I want you to come and serve mine."
Now, talking about some of the ups and downs of life, some lessons learned along the way, some scars that we pick up, I suppose, but all of this useful within the kingdom of God. It's not like, well, that first season, that was a mistake, that was a misturn, my ladder was up against the wrong wall. God uses that as we move forward, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Romans 8, all things work together for good. It's a common phrase that too many people think is a cliche, but it's actually true.
Yeah.
God redeems things. God puts His purpose into even a crisis.
Yeah.
And if we realise that, then we understand I heard God say several times to me, "Son, nothing is wasted. Trust me. Take the next step." And I find myself now using skills, passions, and connections that I had from business in my church life. So nothing has been wasted. It's been building for the next season.
It's easy, I suppose, to say, hey, here's my story of success. Here's my 20-year history of how I became an overnight success. But actually, for all of us, there's disappointments. For all of us, there's seasons which perhaps we could even describe as failure. But certainly from my experience, Phil, you can learn more in a situation that could be seen as failure than you can from being successful.
Absolutely, if you have the right attitude. I was so deep in a hole at one point that I had to look up to see the bottom.
Yeah.
And I could have been I was in despair for some time. I grew a beard, I grew my hair. People at church, some people didn't even recognise me.
Yeah.
I was in a cave, not literally but figuratively.
I got this image of Tom Hanks from Castaway, but no, not quite.
No, close. I've got photos. It's close, close. But out of that, you've got to reset yourself, don't you? And where does my help come from? It comes from the Lord. So it took me a while to realise that when I was in that hole.
Yep.
But God is faithful. God comes and speaks to us like a father and lifts our head so that we can see Him. And then from that, He walks with us.
I think for guys in particular, our identity can be almost synonymous with our vocation. Who we are is what we do. And in Kiwi culture, of course, it's often the question you ask, so what do you do? Is there a little bit too much in that? Is that a little bit out of balance, that our identity is tied up too much in how we earn the money to pay the bills?
I think the short answer is yes, but there's a long answer behind that.
Yeah.
We're wired that way. God built us as men to be providers, protectors, and to be leaders in our home, in the community. So it's natural, but when it's inflated beyond what's normal in God's eyes, that's when it becomes a crutch or an Achilles heel, a weakness. I think we should take pride in the work that we do. I think we should work for the glory of God. I actually think we should flourish and be successful like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did in their farming business, so that we can be evidence of God's goodness. But when that becomes an idol, and we create our identity because I'm a plumber or because I'm a leader or because I'm a teacher, then we've turned something good into an idol. I think as men, my message would be, first, be a leader of yourself. If you're married, your primary purpose in the home is to lift your wife to flourish as God has prepared her to. And then ultimately, men just need to man up and lead their families.
Yeah.
And that's hard when we've been downtrodden, or we've been locked away, or we've had loss, or we've had our identity, what we consider our identity, stripped.
Yeah.
But that's what we've got to rebuild in men. That's what all of us need to get a sense of God's refreshment back in our lives, because the world needs leaders.
Yeah.
The community right now needs leaders. And it's godly men that will be those leaders that will bring the community back to life.
And often those leadership skills come from managing life in a crisis, managing a crisis of identity perhaps,